Hi, how's everybody doing out there? This is Dr. Lenora Coleman, President and founder of Healing Our Village and Executive Director of Total Lifestyle Change. Welcome to Sugar Busters. It's a beautiful Saturday. We stream live to our Facebook page and to our HOV Health website every Saturday from 12 to 1. And I welcome you today to our fourth segment. So the last 3 weeks, we covered what diabetes is all about. We talked about all the medications that are used to control your blood sugar. We talked about what you should eat and not eat and trying to get your weight down and trying to control your blood sugar. So what does a low carb diet look like? And today we're talking about the heart of the matter. This is a very important class because many of you out there have high blood pressure, or you have coronary artery disease, or you have peripheral vascular disease, or you have heart failure. And all of those conditions, those heart conditions, are very, very common in people that have diabetes. And so it's important that not only do you control your blood sugar, but we need to make sure that you're controlling your high blood pressure and that you're controlling your cholesterol levels. And the reason we do that is because most people with type 2 diabetes die of heart disease. So it's the heart disease that is killing our type 2 diabetes patients, right? Your type 1 diabetes patients, if they live long enough, they also can have problems with heart disease. But really with our type 1 diabetes patients, you're really seeing the kidneys as the major problem that they have. So we need to make sure that you understand that there is a relationship between high blood sugars and heart disease. So we're going to talk about that in detail today, with mostly the focus being on hypertension. Now, there's this slide that says, what do you need to know about health care disparities? And I threw this slide into this show because we have disparities in health care in this country. The way that people of color are treated in doctor's offices, hospitals, clinics, throughout the healthcare system is different if you're a person of color, African American, Latino, Asian, or if you're Caucasian. We know that is in fact the case. The level of care, the opportunity to receive care, the amount of access you have to the healthcare system, all of that is influenced by healthcare disparities. And so we know that healthcare disparities are there. We need to know, we also know that it really affects racial and ethnic minorities, and it affects the quality of the health care that they get. So when we're talking about disparities in health care, we're not only talking about minorities, but we're also talking about the elderly. I have been amazed at the level of care that our seniors in this country are receiving. And this is the interesting thing. Seniors, people who are 65 or older in this country, have Medicare. Medicare covers the cost of their health care. And recently, the Medicare coverage has improved greatly because there's all these Medicare Advantage plans that are giving people hearing aids and giving people free exercise classes and doing all sorts of really wonderful things for our seniors. Yet, when I go into all of these senior housing complexes, here in Georgia, here in the greater Atlanta area, I am appalled at the level of care that they are receiving. And so we have got to do a much better job with the disparities that we're seeing for our seniors here in this country. So we also know that women are not getting the same level of care as men in this country. There are disparities based upon gender. So we have got to make sure, as we are going out here, seeing our doctors, going to the hospital, As you're taking care of your family members, you have to advocate for them and for yourself so that you're getting the best level of care that you should receive. Now, you only know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know. And so some of you out there don't even know that you're getting a substandard level of care. You actually think that everything's fine. And that is what Healing Our Village is all about. We're here to advocate for you and for your family. And in order to be able to, for us and you to work together, we have a membership club called Village Club. And we're going to talk more about that at the end of the program, because I want everyone, especially women, the elderly, and ethnic minorities, to join Village Club. So if in fact you think maybe, you need a second opinion, things might not be going the way you think they should be going, you can call us and we'll be able to help you with those kinds of decisions and the kinds of things that are going on with your health care. So we know that the disparities are there, and the reasons for the disparities are very complex. It has to do with the time that your doctor spends with you. It has to do with, do you speak a foreign language? All right, are they understanding? Are you communicating well with your healthcare professionals that you work with? Are you communicating with the clinic systems and the hospital systems that you go to? Okay, where do you live? We know that their care in certain parts of the country is not as good as care in other parts of the country. We know that the doctor that you're seeing may have a cultural bias, may put you in a stereotypical category. They may stereotype who they think you are based upon your ethnicity or your age. So they have bias. And so that creates a great degree of uncertainty in terms of your ability to communicate effectively with your healthcare provider. And then you all also bear some responsibility for this. You have to be your advocate. You have to make sure that you change your behaviors so that you can be as healthy as possible. If you know you don't speak the English language very well, you need to bring someone with you who can help you communicate with your healthcare provider. So that rests on you. You are responsible for making sure that you are getting the best care possible. And if you don't think you are, then again, Healing Our Village is here to advocate for you. Now let's talk about heart disease. About 20 million American adults die from heart disease. So that actually is and this is in the United States. This is in the country that has one of the best healthcare systems in the world, yet, one person dies every 34 seconds in this country due to heart disease. When we were going through COVID and we hadn't gotten our vaccines yet, back in 2021, who do you think was dying of COVID? It was the people who had heart disease. It was the people who had diabetes. They were more at risk of the bad sequelae of COVID than people who were healthy. We know that is a fact. This graph on the screen shows you that if you look and see who's got the most issues with heart disease, what percentage of patients have the most problems with heart disease, you can see it's African American females. Didn't used to be like that. Actually, African American males used to be higher than females, but you see females are leading the pack here with this chart. You know why that is? Because they're now working more in the workplace, so they're more stressed. Therefore, they have less time in their day to exercise and eat healthy. And they're smoking more than they used to smoke. They used to smoke, now it's about even, men and women. All of that causes heart disease to be more significant in the African American female. So the African American female didn't used to have hypertension. That was not what we saw, very few. The African American woman didn't have heart failure, but now we're leading the pack. And so those out there in the audience who know that you have it or know people in your family, they need to be tuning in. Hit them up right now. Tell them to turn on Healing Our Village. Turn on Sugar Busters. We're live and streaming. I am here in studio. I'm right now on Facebook. This is my Facebook channel. If you got a question, I have somebody monitoring the questions right now. You can ask me a question about what's going on with you personally, and I can answer it. So let's make sure that everyone in the village who has heart disease is tuning in right now. So let's talk about hypertension. I care about that. I care about that because African Americans have more hypertension than anybody in the world. Can I say that again out loud? Listen to what I just said. African Americans, not people of African descent, African Americans, people who live here in the United States, have the highest rates of hypertension than anybody else, any other ethnic group, any other group of people in the world. So I have been trying for the last 2 years to get a Stop Hypertension initiative going among African Americans so we can stop hypertension. It's really simple to do that, folks. But yet we continue to have high blood pressure. We continue to die of high blood pressure. That makes no sense to me. Right now there's 116 million people in the United States, that's 1 in 3, that have high blood pressure. It's very common in African Americans. And we know that as you get older, your blood pressure just normally goes up because the vessels in your body start to stiffen, and so that causes high blood pressure. We know that a middle-aged American faces a 90% chance of developing high blood pressure during their lives. And we know that high blood pressure happens because we're overweight, we have a family history of it, and we're in this sort of pre-hypertension stage where your blood pressure is between 120 to 129 for the top number and 80 to 89 for the bottom number. So you're suffering from pre-hypertension, which then goes on to develop high blood pressure, which is basically diagnosed if your blood pressure is greater than 130 over 80. So that's the number. We'll talk more about that. So we know that African Americans have more high blood pressure than Caucasians. We know that. We know that it begins earlier in life. We have people African American men in their 20s at peak physical condition dying of sudden death on the basketball court, on the football field. And it's not because they're out of shape. It's not because they're not healthy. It's because they have hypertension that's been undiagnosed. We also know that African Americans have a higher death rate from stroke and from kidney disease than Caucasian. So hypertension, and we're going to go through all the different things that it can cause. Hypertension causes you to have the strokes and the heart attacks, and we're going to talk more about that. So here is the anatomy of the heart, right? So let's talk about what high blood pressure is, all right? So the heart, as you can see here, has 2 chambers that it pumps blood. It's one of the hardest working muscles in the body. You're talking about muscles, you're talking about lifting weights and building your biceps and your triceps, okay? Those are muscles as well. But this heart muscle, just think about it. It's beating your entire life. It's working hard every day, all day, even at night, to pump the blood throughout your system. So we want to keep our heart muscle as healthy as possible. So what high blood pressure is the force of the blood against the walls of the artery when the heart pumps. So when you talk about high blood pressure, you're talking about 2 numbers. You're talking about the systolic pressure. That is the pressure in the vessels of the body when the heart is pumping. And then there's the diastolic pressure. That is the pressure in the vessels of the body when the heart is relaxing. So high blood pressure has 2 numbers. Systolic is the top number. Diastolic is the bottom number. So a normal blood pressure, we would like all of you, especially if you're African American, to be down here at 120 over 80. Because if you're down at 120 over 80 or less, then we know that you're not causing any damage to the heart, to your arteries, and to your veins. You're not causing any damage to your eyes, to your kidneys. You're not causing any damage for that. And so that's why we want your blood pressure to be as low as possible, especially if you're African American. All right, so that's very important. So I talked a little bit about pre-hypertension. This is this area where you're sort of a little bit higher than 120 over 80, but you're not yet at 130 over 80, which is where we're actually diagnosing hypertension. All right, so if we start to work on your blood pressure when you're in that pre-hypertension stage, we can prevent you from going on to hypertension. All right, now we also know that as you get older, people who are 50 years or older usually have the systolic hypertension. So that top number is elevated, but the bottom number might be okay. So we need to make sure that both numbers are under control. So if the top number is elevated, that's what causes the stroke. But if that bottom number, when your heart's resting, is elevated, that's what causes the heart attacks. So as a pharmacist and at your doctor, they're looking at both numbers, making sure that both numbers are in good control. Okay, now, why do we care? We care because we know that if your blood pressure gets too high, it causes the heart attacks and it causes the stroke. And we know it's the first and or third leading cause of death of Americans. I just told you how many people are dying because they have hypertension and other forms of heart disease. And that it can affect the kidneys. And so for African Americans, that's a big deal, all right? If you go to any dialysis center in this country and look and see who's in there, it's people of color. It's African Americans, both men and women, because they have high blood pressure and because they have diabetes out of control. And so it's important that we control both your diabetes and your high blood pressure so that it doesn't affect your kidneys. Your kidneys are very important. And if you can't filter out all of the waste products in your body, that becomes a problem. Now, what causes high blood pressure? Well, if we have narrowing of the arteries that the blood is going through, that can cause your blood pressure to go up because the heart has to work harder to get through a narrow artery. The heart ends up beating a little bit faster in order to force that blood through, which makes the heart have to work harder. Now, we call hypertension the silent killer. And the reason why we call it that is because in many people, we're not exactly sure why their blood pressure is up. All right? So sometimes we can't find a cause for the high blood pressure, but we do know that it runs in families. We do know a few things, all right? So it might be caused by other medical problems like diabetes out of control. We do know that it can be affected by cholesterol buildup in the arteries. That's what you see here in this picture. That happens very commonly in people with diabetes. People with diabetes have higher cholesterol level and cholesterol buildup in their arteries, and you narrow that artery so that that heart has to work harder to get the blood through. If you have diabetes, we know that you're 2 times more likely to have heart disease. So when I think about diabetes, I basically think about it as being a form of heart disease. So as aggressive as I am in controlling the blood pressure in people that say have had a heart attack or have had a stroke, I'm the same degree of aggressiveness in controlling people's blood sugars who have diabetes. We know that women have a greater risk of heart disease. You saw that in that first graph that I showed. And if you've already had one heart attack, the likelihood of you having a second one is very high. So when we take care of patients that's had that first heart attack, we make sure that we get their blood sugar down, get their blood pressure down, get their cholesterol down. We usually put them on a blood thinner like an aspirin once a day, a baby aspirin, because we want to make sure that we are preventing that second heart attack. Now, let's talk about the complications of heart disease and high blood pressure. All right, when you're talking about the brain and the eyes, we're talking about stroke. Stroke is because you have a very high blood pressure, and sometimes it might mean you're throwing a clot, and that clot goes through your carotid artery into your brain and causes you to have a stroke. We also know that in the back of your eye you have very small blood vessels, and if you have a high pressure in those very small vessels, those vessels can break, and that can then cause you to have impaired vision because you have bleeding in the back of your eye. All right? So that's why many people that have hypertension, have diabetes, we want them to go see an eye doctor on a regular basis, yearly, to make sure that the back of the eye is looking good. We know that high blood pressure affects the arteries. I already told you that. It can make the arteries become stiff and thin. All right? So the heart has to work harder to get the blood through. We know that it causes kidney. Kidneys, just like the eyes, have very small blood vessels inside the kidney. And if that blood pressure gets too high, it affects those arteries in the kidney. And the kidneys are important, as mentioned. They help you filter out the excess fluid in your body, filter out the waste in your body. And so if those kidneys start to shut down, we have to put you on a machine. We have to put you on a dialysis machine to do the work that your kidneys normally does. All right, and we don't want you to have to go to dialysis 3 and 4 times a week. So we want to make sure we keep those kidneys healthy, and we do that by not having high blood pressure. We already talked about heart attacks. Heart attacks are very common. You get a clog in your heart's trying to beat, and that part of the heart where that clot is dies. All right, and that causes the heart attack because it's a blockage, and therefore the blood is not getting out to the rest of your body, and that causes your body to be starved of oxygen because you remember it's the blood that carries the hemoglobin, which carries the oxygen molecule. So that's why we don't want you to have any kind of heart attack. And then heart failure. Remember I told you that the heart is the hardest working muscle in the body. Well, if that heart has to work too hard for a number of years, what it does is it starts to enlarge. It gets bigger because it's a muscle. And if you work that muscle too hard, just like any other muscle in the body, it gets bigger. Problem is that when it gets bigger, it gets less efficient. It doesn't work as well. And so that ends up causing people to have something called heart failure. All right, very serious problem. So that it starts to make you have shortness of breath and fatigue, and it makes you have swelling in your legs. It causes all of these symptoms because that heart is not working as efficiently as it should work. So when you're having a heart attack, your body will let you know, that heart will let you know, because you start to have a pain in your chest. You'll feel it right where that heart is, in the center of the chest. And it lasts about a few minutes, and it usually goes away. That pain may actually go, that you feel it going down your neck or your shoulder. You feel pain, and it sort of moves from your chest and sort of moves down into your arms or your shoulders. And you feel like there's like it feels like there's a discomfort, like there's a squeezing in your chest. You might get lightheaded. You might feel faint. You might get dizzy. You might get shortness of breath. You might start to sweat. All of these are the classic signs of a heart attack. You might get those signs, but you might not get those signs. Women typically don't get all of those signs that we just mentioned. They have what we call atypical signs of heart attack. So they might feel like they have indigestion or abdominal pain, or they may have the nausea and dizziness but not have the chest pain, or they just feel really anxious or weak or tired. All right, so these are atypical symptoms. Maybe they just have a rapid heartbeat or just feel real cold all of a sudden, or just something's, they just don't feel quite right. Those are the signs of a heart attack that we see in women. So you can't ignore those things. You can't just say, oh, I must be catching the flu. So you have to be tuned into your body. Your body will tell you, believe me, if you got something going on. You just have to listen to your body. Now let's talk more in depth about stroke. The blood supply to the brain is mainly through these arteries right here on the side of the neck called the carotid artery. You can see it in that picture. And that blood supply flows through that carotid artery into the brain. And even if it's stopped for just a few seconds, a few minutes, that can cause damage to the brain because the brain's not getting that vital oxygen that it needs. So if you block the blood supply to the brain, it can cause damage in the brain. And so where the damage occurs, in the frontal lobe, in the front of your brain, in the back of your brain, on the left side, the right side, where that damage occurs will tell you where the problems are going to happen in your body. So is it going to be the left side that you can't feel? Is it going to be the right side that you can't feel? All right? And the signs after the stroke, right? Like maybe you can't remember anything. Well, maybe that was because the stroke was in the memory center of your brain. So where the damage occurs in your brain will show after the stroke is over. Now, some people have what we call mini strokes. They're called transient ischemic attacks, TIAs. And these are warning strokes. And so you got to take those seriously because those happen for maybe a minute, very, 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 very short periods of time. And you need to let your doctor know about those if you're having these small, sort of dizzy, sort of weird symptoms, that there's something going on with you because we can prevent those from occurring. A major stroke occurs after that blood supply has been blocked for 5 minutes. So if you start blocking that blood supply for 3, 4, 5 minutes, then the damage in your brain is much more severe than if you're only blocking it for 1, 2, 3 minutes. Okay, so here are the stroke symptoms again. The numbness, the weakness in your face or your arm or your leg. All of a sudden you're not able to talk clearly. You're sort of slurring your word. People don't understand what you're talking about, right? Or if you can't speak, or if all of a sudden you're really confused, or if you start having trouble seeing out of one eye or both eyes, or you can't walk, you feel off balance, you feel like you're about to fall, you lose your coordination. The most classic sign of a stroke is you have a severe headache, one of the worst headaches you've ever had. And so if you get a headache, and that headache is pronounced, and it hurts a lot, all right, you need to make sure that you take your blood pressure. Everybody that has high blood pressure needs to have a blood pressure cuff. You need to have a cuff in your home so that if you're feeling like something's going on, you can at least rule out that it's your blood pressure. So when people tell me they have a headache, I say be sure you take your blood pressure during that time, because you want to make sure that, it's not your blood pressure that's causing the headache. After the stroke, depending upon where the damage occurs in your brain, you might have memory loss, or you might not be able to walk, or you lose the feeling on one side of the body or the other side of the body. All of those are classic after symptoms of a stroke. And most people who have a stroke have to go to rehab. They have to go to a rehab facility, or they have physical therapy come to their home. But it takes months, sometimes years, to get back to full functioning, depending upon what part of the brain was affected. And if it affects that memory center, you may not ever get back 100%. So this is serious stuff, folks. This is stuff that can actually affect your ability to live a long and healthy life. So we do not want to take any chances of having a stroke or a heart attack. All right, so we're going to take a short break right now. I want you to get up. I want you to walk in place. I want you to get yourself a glass of water, and we're going to be right back.
Epigallocatechin gallate, superoxide dismutase, glutathione peroxidase. Now those are names you probably aren't familiar with, but you should be. Those are antioxidants known to fight free radicals. In fact, did you know that some viruses are actually alcohol resistant? One major study showed that by adding the epigallocatechins from green tea, it killed the virus on contact. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Mark Johnson. I'm here to share with you an exciting new, technologically advanced, patent-pending green tea hand sanitizing wash from Handout Protection. Now, this is not your typical hand gel designed to just smear all over your hand. This is a hand washing sanitizer to cover your entire hand, both the front and back of your hand, in between your fingers and your wrist. This is a non-sticky sanitizing hand wash designed for convenience to take with you in your purse, pocket, or carry in your lunchbox. As Dr. Josh Ridge has stated, what goes on your body goes into your body. That is why we choose only the highest FDA-compliant ingredients, such as 75% isopropyl alcohol in organic green tea brewed with alkaline water. The only way to protect yourself and your family is to always carry a disposable package of Handout with you. This may be the only Handout you ever need.
Hi, welcome back. Listen, I am live on Facebook right now. I am actually live on my hovhealth.com website. I'm here to answer questions, folks. If you have someone in your family, if you have a question about your medicines, your high blood pressure, what you can eat, please, we're here to try to answer as many questions as we possibly can. So I'm very interested in you guys putting some questions into the chat, putting some questions into Facebook, so that at the end of the program, if you have any questions, I can answer them. All right, so we're talking about high blood pressure. This is Sugar Busters, the heart of the matter. I'm Dr. Lenora Coleman, president and founder of Healing Our Village, for those of you who have just tuned in. And I'm really interested in trying to decrease the high blood pressure rate among African Americans in this country. I'm very focused on that. So let's talk about treatment. The first thing is you need to know your numbers. You need to know your numbers. When you take your blood pressure, you need to know what the number should be. The number should be 130 over 80, 130 over 80. I'd like it to be less than that. I'd like it to be 120 over 80. Because if I can get you to 120 over 80, then I can decrease your chances of heart attack, strokes, kidney disease, all of that. So, in order to be able to treat high blood pressure, the first thing is you got to stop eating so much salt. You got to stop eating all the salt in your diet, all right? You have to change your lifestyle. So you have to get more exercise. You have to decrease the stress and strains in your life. Okay, so a lot of you are living in dysfunctional families. You hate your job. Every time you get in your car on your way to work, your blood pressure goes up, okay? Because you don't want to go to work. You hate your job, you hate your life, you hate your husband, your wife, your kids. You got stressors, folks, in your life. Okay, you got to get rid of those stressors, seriously. All right, or learn how to minimize their impact on you. Because you get to control you. All right, so long time ago, try to not let this stuff bother me, because that's how you have high blood pressure. So that's all still a part of adopting a healthy lifestyle. You have to decrease the stress. Most doctors diagnose a person with high blood pressure based upon more than one reading. And again, that number needs to be 130 over 80. If it's greater than 130 over 80, then we diagnose you as having hypertension. Now, There's something called white coat syndrome. What that means is when you go see your doctor, your blood pressure goes up. Usually your blood pressure might be fine when you're at home and you're taking it because you have a blood pressure cuff, right? Okay. But when you get to that doctor's office, all of a sudden you have hypertension. I don't know why, maybe because you're worried that they may tell you something bad. But if the doctor suspects that you have that, they will usually have you wear a 24-hour monitor where you're actually monitoring your blood pressure over a 24-hour period. Then you bring back this monitor and then they'll read the readings to see if in fact you have this white coat hypertension. But it's very, very common. A lot of people have it and we don't know it. So let's talk about prevention, which is important. But if you have high blood pressure, then a little bit about the medications, all right? Okay, so prevention is again that lifestyle change. Maintaining a healthy weight, being physically active, trying to eat more fruits and vegetables in your diet, low-fat dairy foods, yogurts and milk should be low-fat, 1%, or it says low-fat on the container. Preparing foods with very little salt, using your herbs and your spices, if you like to put on onion salt, use onion powder, all right? Look at your seasonings in your cabinet. If it has the word salt on the front label, you can't use that because that means it has salt in it. Drinking alcohol in moderation, that's a conversation that you need to have with your doctor, very important. They found that red wine and things like that actually can maybe be beneficial if done in moderation. So that's part of that Mediterranean diet that a lot of people like to eat. Trying to decrease the amount of beef in your diet, eating more fish and chicken and turkey, roasting, baking, grilling your foods as much as possible, avoiding fried foods, avoiding fatty foods, avoiding things like bacon and sausage and hot dogs and butter and mayonnaise, and all of those have high amounts of fat. Doesn't mean you can't have it, just means you have to decrease the amount that you're having. Choosing to prepare your foods, again, with less salt. Lifestyle changes we've talked about. So let's talk about the medicine. So everybody, once you've done that, once you've made those dietary changes and your blood pressure is still high, you're going to have to take a medication. African Americans have to usually take 2 to 3 medicines to control their blood pressure. So African Americans have blood pressures that tend to be hard to control. So one medicine's usually not going to get you where you need to be in terms of getting down to that 130/80. So let's start with water pills, diuretics. If you're African American, you need to be on a diuretic. End of story, done, full stop, we're done. Okay, you have to do it. I know it makes you use the urinate more frequently and it's a pain. I get it. But guess what? If you're on a water pill and you've been on that water pill for a couple of months and you're still having a lot of urination throughout the day, that means you're eating too much salt in your diet. Yeah, so that's a clue. Because after a while, after a couple months, your body adjusts. So you should not still have to be going to the bathroom as frequently. So as you can imagine, water pills work on the kidneys. And they help the kidneys flush out that excess water and sodium from your body. That's how they decrease your blood pressure. Because we know that excess fluid and excess salt increases your blood pressure. Okay. Beta blockers. Basically, they are pills that decrease how fast the heart beats. So that's going to slow down the heart. If you slow down the beat, of the heart, then you're not going to have as much force against your blood vessels. And so if you slow down your heart rate, your blood pressure drops. Okay? ACE inhibitors and angiotensin antagonists. They're similar to each other. Very commonly used if you have high blood pressure and diabetes. If you have diabetes and high blood pressure, these drugs are required for the management of your blood pressure because they have found to be protective of the kidney. So we need you to be either on an ACE inhibitor or an angiotensin antagonist. And when you go to your pharmacy, to pick up your medicines for your blood pressure, when you pick up your medicines for your diabetes, can you just do that when you have a few minutes to ask to speak to the pharmacist so that they can explain to you what medicines you're on and how they work? Because you need to know that. That's very important, all right? So the ACE inhibitors, they usually end in the word pril. So lisinopril, ramipril, captopril. The angiotensin antagonists usually end in the word tan. So losartan, all right? So that's how you know the difference between the ACE inhibitors and the angiotensin antagonists. If you just take your prescription, go to Google and type in the name, it's going to tell you what class of medications you're on, all right? So these medicines are very good. They work on decreasing this angiotensin 2. This is a very important chemical that's in your body that if it's in high amounts, it causes constriction. So therefore, if you block it, you're able to relax your blood vessels, and that decreases your blood pressure. All right, we also have something called calcium channel blockers. It keeps the calcium from entering the muscle cells of the heart and blood vessels. These agents work very good in African Americans. So there's been a lot of data showing that if you're an African American with high blood pressure, you probably need to be on a calcium channel blocker. All right, so again, you need to ask your pharmacist, ask your doctor, what medicines am I on and how do they work? Because Dr. Coleman just told me that if I was an African American, I probably should be on a calcium channel blocker. Dr. Coleman just told me that if I have diabetes and hypertension, I need to be on an ACE inhibitor or an ARB antagonist. Very important. Okay. There are also alpha blockers and alpha beta blockers. All right, they work pretty much like the alpha beta blockers work very much like the beta blockers, so they're slowing down that heartbeat. The alpha blockers actually reduce the nerve impulses to the blood vessels so that that blood passes through more easily. So it relaxes the arteries of the body. There's nervous system inhibitors and vasodilators. These are very commonly used. They have a lot of side effects, but they are still out there in the marketplace. So, what can I do? What have you learned today? What have you learned today? What can I do to improve my blood pressure? All right, well, for those of you who are overweight, decreasing your weight by watching what you eat and getting more exercise can help. All right, we talked about your eating plan. There's a diet called the DASH diet. DASH stands for Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension. That's pretty cool, right? DASH. You Google it. It's right there on the internet. It works very well, especially in men, for the management of hypertension, and that's the kind of diet you should be eating. All right? Getting more exercise. Things that make your heart beat. So not lifting weights. Not anaerobic exercise. We want you to do aerobic. So aerobic exercise means it's increasing your heart rate. You're getting more oxygen in your body. That's good. All right? That helps to decrease your blood pressure. And then taking your medicines. If you have hypertension, it's not going to go away by wishing it away. And it probably is not going to go away by changing, just by changing your diet and exercise. Especially if you're African American. If you're African American, you're going to need to be on a medication for the management of your high blood pressure. Because we need to get your number down to 130/80 or less. There's no playing around with this, folks. You got to do it. So that means you got to take the medicines, and you got to take them every day. It's very important. Now, if you think you're having a heart attack, and we went through the signs, if you start getting that chest tightness, rapid heartbeat, feel like you're fainting, pain that moves down your arm, I told you all the signs and symptoms. If you're thinking you're having a heart attack or a stroke, you're not going to get in your car and drive to your doctor's. You're not going to get in your car and drive to the hospital. You're going to call 911. You're going to get into an ambulance, and they're going to take you to the closest ER because you don't have a lot of time if you're having those symptoms. We need to get you to the hospital right away, because the longer you go without some kind of treatment, the more damage happens to your heart, to your blood vessels, and to your brain if you're having a stroke. So we need to hurry up and get to the hospital, all right? You're not waiting for your husband or your wife or your kids to get home. You're going to the hospital right away. Very important. For those seniors out there, you need to get you a life alert so that you can push the button if you're especially if you live by yourself, so that you can get yourself to the hospital as quickly as possible. So, what do you do when you think you're having a heart attack or stroke out there? Call 911. So important. So that is our program for today. We're going to continue to reach out to you at our 800 number here in Healing Our Village. That's 800-788-0941. We have a way for you to talk to a pharmacist, for you to talk to your doctor, to one of our doctors, for you to talk to one of our dietitians. On Wednesdays here, we're in Jonesboro, Georgia. For you folks out here in Atlanta, come on down, see us on Wednesdays. We do something called Wellness Wednesdays. I'll take your blood pressure, I'll do your blood sugar right there. Right there, you'll be able to know what your numbers are. So that is so important. So again, 800-788-0941. That's where we're looking at. And I really appreciate you all tuning in today. We talked about Village Club. That's something we really want you to be able to do. We also want you to subscribe to when you go to our websites, HOV Health or Healing Our Village. You'll be able to subscribe and get on our Facebook like page, our email list, so we can send out information to you on a regular basis. Again, we want you to join Village Club. It's very inexpensive. $6 a month is what we're looking at. Step Up 90 is our weight loss program. This is the various things that we sell on our website. We have our blood pressure cuffs and our blood glucose meters at a discounted rate. Here's our Wellness Wednesdays that we do every Wednesday from 11 to 3. We want you to come on down. And here is, again, the information about what we're doing here at Healing Our Village. There's my phone number, 800-788-0941. We want you to $6 a month, $72 for the year. You and your family can get the expertise that we have here at Healing Our Village and get your numbers under control. So thank you so much for joining our Sugar Buster series today. I'm Dr. Lenore Coleman, President and Founder of Healing Our Village. Thank you so much for watching. And again, every Saturday from 12 to 1, we're here providing information not only here in the United States, but globally. So again, enjoy your afternoon, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Hello, I'm Dr. Lenore Coleman, President and Founder of Healing Our Village. Did you know 88 million people in the United States have prediabetes, and that number keeps growing? Did you know that more than 2 in 3 adults in the United States are either overweight or obese? Healing Our Village is excited to introduce Step Up 90, weight loss and diabetes prevention program, all in one. Finally, there is a guided mobile app that will help you lose 5 to 7% of your body weight and help you get your 150 minutes of exercise in every week. All of this is available on your cell phone, notepad, or computer. To install Step Up 90, all you have to do is go to www.stepup90 from your phone or computer and hit the install button. Once the icon is added to your home screen, you can create a unique login and password or use your Facebook or Google login credentials. Do you have prediabetes? Does diabetes run in your family? Well, once you log in to Step Up 90, you can take the diabetes risk test. If you score more than 5, you may be at risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Step Up 90 features the CDC-approved Prevent T2 program, along with their food log, fitness log, and action plan. All materials can be printed or download it for easy use. Our monthly calendar provides our virtual class schedule with a reminder 30 minutes before the class to help you remember. Are you looking for easy to understand lifestyle videos, healthy recipes, exercise classes, nutritional support groups, or a cooking demonstration? All of this is available with our premium package. The most unique feature of Step Up 90 is your ability to chat with your lifestyle coach, a clinical pharmacist, or a registered dietitian. These experts will have weekly office hours. They are there to help you achieve your lifestyle goals and manage your medications. Sign up today for Step Up 90. We have our basic package starting at $5.99, featuring our weekly Zoom classes, and our premium package at $19.99. Step Up 90, it is time for you to step up.